Okay, so welcome back to the Vesque Luxe Talks of Life podcast series. Today we are pleased to be joined by Greg Sotzing, a professor of polymer chemistry at the University of Connecticut and co-founder of 3BC LLC, the Cannabinoid Company, to talk about developments in the cannabinoid space. Welcome, Greg, and thank you for making the time to join us.
Thank you.
So what are you exploring in the hemp and CBD realms?
Yes, I don't know if I need to make a general statement about being a professor and being with the startup, but anything I state in this interview is pretty much my opinion, not the opinion of the university.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we're studying at 3BC, making a business of, is within the realm of trace cannabinoids. These are cannabinoids that are present in very small quantities inside the plant. The hemp plant is what I'm referring to. And specifically what we're looking at is going towards a natural procedure of converting the CBD, or actually taking the hemp itself and turning that into some of these trace cannabinoids. Let's say enriching the quantities of these trace cannabinoids.
And what products do you have in the market or under development at this point?
Yeah, so currently we're still a startup company. So within the last year and maybe 2 months, looking into these procedures, we do have some very nice results, and we're scaling these procedures up for taking, again, the trace cannabinoid, specifically cannabinol, off to the industry. So the idea is to take and provide this to those that would take and want it.
Terrific. And where do you see the market going at this point? This is all a new space in terms of trace cannabinoids. The market is just finally understanding a little bit of what CBD is and the difference between CBD, THC, hemp, marijuana, and so forth. And now we've got trace cannabinoids. So where do we see this going?
Yeah, so the trace cannabinoid I'm referring to with cannabinol, that's the one that's been touted the most within all the recent streams. It's looking to be the cannabinoid that would be as popular or maybe more popular than the CBD, the cannabidiol, that you see around in different types of products. So when you're looking at cannabinol, you're looking at something that can be a sleep aid, and a muscle relaxer is something else that's touted for. So when you look at something like that, again, you're looking at things like could be transdermals. It could be something that you take and ingest. Again, that's what we look at going into, is selling the trace cannabinoid to someone who would take and then produce those types of products.
So then who do you see as your primary customers as a company?
Oh, I'm learning more and more about, let's say there's the cannabis space by which they're taking and producing different types of cannabinoid products. Could be in the forms of foods or drinks, transdermals or pills, things like that. Then you also have the mainstream industry that works on things with biomedical types of devices, as well as things for like wound healing and whatnot, pain reduction, anti-inflammation. So with 3BC, again, what we're looking at is really developing the technology, let's say with another partner, where we could be the provider of the trace cannabinoid within such a relationship and going forward. Or we could just be the person that just takes and sells these things to researchers that would like to take and study cannabinol in a further degree. At present time, I do not believe that there is a large-scale production in the world for cannabinol. Now, I believe these are sold in very small quantities when it comes to pure product.
And what do customers seem to be seeking at this point? Because obviously the industry is moving in different kinds of directions and contemplating the array of these products through the cannabis plant. But then you've got the market starting to reach out and adapt to things.
Yes. Again, our team here at 3BC is, I believe, very qualified in different aspects, and we take our business very professionally. So we're looking for those types of partners that, again, are respected, would be respected type partners to take and go into a collaboration with things like development or with sales. So we're not looking at doing things like, I'll call it like backyard chemistry or moonshining, if you want to call it that. We're looking at very respectable types of businesses, both in the nutraceutical and the pharmaceutical regimes.
Okay. And what do you think the market is missing by way of insights or connectedness to what you're working on?
Well, one thing they're missing, as you can see, you've got the myths of what are of the past for what cannabinoids are. Then you have research that's been developing, with all this thing with having legalization. Researchers now are getting into and doing studies with these types of cannabinoids. So some of the things that are missing is, let's say I like to see more than just one or two papers or research papers on a cannabinoid to see what its effect is. So there need to be more research studies done on these trace cannabinoids. I mean, they're starting to do this with cannabinol, but when you're looking at a plant that has over 100 different cannabinoids inside of it, and only really, maybe one or two of those are really understood, again, there needs to be more research done.
Okay. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about some other leading promising cannabinoids.
Yeah, so again, with the plant having so many, there's a few that have been targeted. Some of these include, for example, CBG. CBG has a lot of the qualities of what you have with the CBD, although it can take and target other types of, let's say, impairments that CBD would not. We also have something called CBC, cannabinoid. Again, this is looking at reducing things like edema swelling is what's one of the things it's called for. Then there's also trace cannabinoids, or they could actually be major cannabinoids within certain plants if they're geared that way, by which the alkyl chain length on the cannabinoid is shorter. And in such cases, you have less, the stuff won't go into the fatty tissue or stay there as long as what it would if there was a longer alkyl chain. So again, you're looking at sort of like diminishing the effects of, let's say, if it's something like THC, there's also something called THCV, of which the pentyl chain, 5-membered carbon chain, is now a 3-membered chain. And the shorter the chain is, again, the less hydrophobic the molecule will be. So again, these are things they're looking at in terms of interest for the future.
Great. And how about terpenes? Where do they fit in here?
Yeah, terpenes, being a chemist and looking at structures of these cannabinoids, if you look at the cannabidiol, the CBD, it's actually two very common terpenes just linked together by a carbon-carbon bond. So limonene and olivetol, if you take those two molecules, connect them very specifically at a carbon for each of the two molecules, connect them together, you'll have the structure CBD. So again, terpenes in general will play a large role in terms of the, let's say, the content of what you have if you have a lot of different cannabinoids present in terpenes. Again, what's been also sort of like thrown out there in literature in some cases is this entourage effect, that one chemical or another chemical, whatever, can take and really pronounce the effect of another set of chemicals, as opposed to just being, the sum of each of the individual chemicals. You actually get a pronounced effect, something like a multiplication of what happens.
Okay, great. Now, a lot of these seem to be oils or in some kind of an oil format. So how does one achieve water solubility?
Yeah, fortunately, in my past, I did a commercialization on a conductive polymer that's very insoluble in water, and we're working on aqueous dispersions to take and process out thin films. So again, when we're looking at water solubility, you could have it really be soluble or you could have it be a dispersion. You could go either route. So dispersion is a formulation type chemistry, whereas if you want to take and induce water solubility, you could take and introduce things that would be functional groups that could take and make the molecule more hydrophilic. Functional groups that could then take and cleave off during some sort of process. So for example, when you have an acid group attached to a cannabinoid, with the acid group connected, it's going to be more polar, and with it being more polar, it should be more water soluble. But then we know that the THCA or CBDA can be converted to, the decarboxylation product, which would just be THC or CBD. Mm-hmm. So you go from something that's a bit more polar to something that's less polar or more hydrophobic. So again, introduction of things like acid groups can take and induce water solubility.
Okay, got it.
Great. And Greg, we talked about some different delivery mechanisms. What about transdermal patches? Are you exploring transdermal patches?
Absolutely, with partners. We're looking at collaborative efforts with people that we take and provide these pure trace cannabinoids to for doing transdermal delivery. Not that we're the experts in it. We're looking to pair up to industries that are experts in the transdermal area.
Okay, great. And, pain is always a big topic with CBD. Is pain release, are you seeing that as a hot topic as well on your side in the industry? Yeah.
Fortunately, here at UConn, we just brought on a new hire who studies pain with cannabinoids. So he does clinical research and is in the School of Nursing. So I'm just saying pain is absolutely, pain and someone getting a good night's sleep. Those are very important aspects for us.
Okay, great. And, dosing is also another thing that we find is very common with, newcomers to CBD. How might one best ensure proper dosing in various delivery mechanisms and types?
So at the university, I've been approved to do all the research on, with the DCP and DEA on Schedule 1s and whatnot. But what we're looking at is other types of material compositions with cannabinoids, and we are filing for intellectual property in that area. So again, one thing is with dosing is you've got to make sure you have a pure chemical. The second thing is with dosing is that either you're looking at a burst release or you're looking at a release over time that you have to control. So you have to have mechanisms that would either accommodate something like a burst release, a certain amount of chemical you want to take and release all at once, or let's say the chemical you want to take and release over a long period of time.
Great. And are there any mechanisms that remain elusive at all?
Yeah. So fortunately, another aspect of science I've gotten into is collaboration with computational. Very competent computational people at Georgia Tech and University of Southern California, and they do things such as modeling and machine learning. But when you take and you get into, again, cannabinoids will have different effects on different people. So as you get in, each different person may need a different type of amount or a different type of formula of different cannabinoids that will take and provide them what they need. So I think what you really have to get into is some statistics and looking at, dosing with an individual and see how it is for that person, because it may not be the same, and it probably will not be the same for everybody.
Right. Good. Now, kind of turning back to trace cannabinoids, what is the market like for these trace cannabinoids right now?
The one thing I can say, it'd be a disruptive type of technology, if you want to call it that, because trace cannabinoids are not really out there on the market like you have for things like CBD or, with the THC. THC has been used for quite some time in the form of like Marinol or Dronabinol in terms of medication. But when you look at things like trace cannabinoids, products have come out where they'll put things like CBN inside of a pill for sleep aid, and there's also products out there for transdermal. It's just that there's not a large market right now. And again, one of the reasons for maybe not having that large market, one is the education, in terms of what does this trace cannabinoid provide. The other one is that when you're looking at the trace cannabinoids, to get a large amount of this to the purity that's required, there's not really a lot out there. So that's one of the things we're looking at doing, but I can say there's a lot of interest from industry for receiving some of these trace cannabinoids in large quantity at a high purity.
Great. That's awesome. And, one of the things we always like to ask is, what's exciting you most in this space right now? And what are you excited about going forward? Could be via trace cannabinoids or anything else in particular?
Well, I'm particularly interested. I'm being an organic chemist. I'm not just a polymer chemist, but as an organic chemist, just trying to get these things down to a procedure with, something that would be legal, first of all, and have this happen through a natural process, which means not using any chemicals that one would deem toxic. These are very important to me, and I like the challenge because that's what I live for. And just trying to get this off, if I can take and produce CBN from hemp in large quantity with a natural process, that's something I believe could hit a global market.
Okay, terrific. Well, a lot of exciting things and a lot of promising things you're working on at 3BC LLC. And I don't know if there are any other notions in terms of for potential partners, what you might be looking for.
Mainly, I've been going through this practice before with other types of technologies. What you really look for is someone who can take and complement your team. So, again, we want to be known and will be known based upon pure trace cannabinoids from hemp. And we're looking for partners who are experts in their own areas to go forward. So something, I'm not looking to take and collaborate with other organic chemists. I believe we have that in control in our company.
Sounds so. So thank you again, Greg, then, and best of luck with your research and the exciting pioneering progress at 3BC LLC, the Cannabinoid Company.
Well, thank you, too, for the invitation.
Okay. Thank you very much.